Chairman Kitchens, committee members, I'm the Reverend Hannah Roberts Villeneuve, and I serve as one of the ministers at the Fox Valley Unitarian Universalist Fellowship up in Appleton. And I'm here today to voice my firm opposition to Assembly Bill 377. So, I was born and raised in Racine, a product of our excellent public K-12 education system here in Wisconsin. And now my oldest child, my daughter, is a student in the Appleton area school district. And my wife and I are so happy to be raising our kids in the state that I love so much that got its claws in me. I tried to leave, I came right back, like so many of us do. And I hope that as her educational career unfolds, that she will choose to participate in sports, not because I think that she needs to earn a scholarship, though, you know, the way investments go, that might be nice, but because I want her to get the numerous physical, mental, and social benefits of those sports, and that have been shown for so many children and youth. But I don't just want that for her. I want that for all of her peers of all genders. And that means letting trans kids play sports with other kids of their same identified gender. And you may say that creating a third category somehow makes it equal under the law. But I think if we all put on our common sense hats and remember what it is like to be 11 years old and what it feels like to be singled out as somehow special and not in a good way, that is not an equitable solution, allowing trans, particularly girls, but trans children, because this is about children, to participate and receive the full suite of benefits that so many receive from sports in the K-12 arena. As a Unitarian Universalist minister, I believe that all people of all genders are reflections of the image of God, worthy of dignity just as they are. And I teach my kids that too. It's not always easy. And that means that in school, whether it's on the field or in the classroom, I expect that they will respect their peers and treat them as such. And my goodness, I was hoping that I could work with a school district and with schools to teach my children how to treat one another with respect. But if I have to do it against school policy, goodness, I will. And respect for trans kids means full inclusion in their school community, including playing on sports teams that reflect the genders that most people in their schools know them as. The WIAA and other youth sports associations are finding solutions that let all kids play in an affirming setting. Right? Not as singled out, but in an affirming setting, and ensure a level playing field. I urge you to oppose Assembly Bill 377 and let those solutions that are already in place work for all kids in Wisconsin. I'm happy to stand for questions if it would be useful.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Sheldon.
Thank you so much for coming. I can tell you speak a lot in public, and I love it. I was like, yes, I'm here for this. I really love how you talk about it from let all kids play. When I was a phys ed teacher, that was one of the most important parts of being in the gym with my students, was when they would come in. It was the kids who didn't want to be there, right? The ones who were the most nervous. Yes. How am I going to survive this badminton unit? That I was like, you're going to be my kid, right? Like, I'm drawing you in. And that perspective is really important. Can you talk a little bit more about what it looks like for kids and the benefits when we let all kids play?
Yeah, when we let all kids play, they get the social benefits of sports, because primarily at the K-12 level, right, as you get into high school, you're getting some physical benefits too, but the sports have enormous social benefits for kids. It teaches them how to resolve conflict. So in my life before I went to seminary and became a pastor, I was a middle school teacher in the Baltimore City Public Schools, and I coached girls lacrosse. We were the bad news bears, basically, of the Baltimore City Middle School Lacrosse League. I coached girls lacrosse, and what I saw is that I saw them learn how to handle anger, especially for kids who've been through a lot, which goodness knows trans kids have been through a lot, that sports is an arena that lets you kind of get some of that out and figure out how to solve conflict with people you don't necessarily agree with, you don't necessarily like, how to deal with people in authority telling you something that you don't want to hear. If you ever want to watch like a teenage girl fight with a ref, right? That it lets them learn problem solving and learn community building skills. And that's true for everyone on the team, that you have to figure out how to achieve a goal together. And I appreciate that folks do want to allow all kids to play in the bill in AB 377 as it's written. And yet it creates a third separate category that, if you're the only trans youth at your middle school, what, you playing on a one-person basketball team? And so being able to play in that team setting is where so many of those benefits come.
Thank you. I'm the Reverend Zaina Tomley. I'm an ordained minister of the United Church of Christ and pastor at Middleton Community Church right here in the Madison area. I have been raised and loved by the state of Wisconsin from the very beginning. I was a female athlete 20 years ago, and I'm a mother now to a toddler I soon will proudly enroll in our local public schools and hopefully sports. There are others here who have spoken to the science and the statistics, so I'm going to talk to you about what I know. This bill and the other anti-trans bills being discussed today are dangerous. And while they'll do little, or more likely nothing, to support cis girls, they'll send a devastating message to each and every queer kid in our schools. I'm here simply to submit another message to the record. I'm here as a faith leader and a mother and a citizen committed to building a world where all children, but especially queer kids, know they are loved, know they are valued, and know they belong, because their lives literally depend on it. In our faith tradition, we baptize babies with water. And when we do, I invite all other children in my congregation to come up and help me bless that water. As I pour holy water over their hands, I remind them that one of the reasons we use water in this way at the beginning of their lives is because we can be sure it's something they'll feel again. Every time we wash our hands or play in the sprinkler on a hot summer day or stand out in the rain or join a swim team, water can remind us of what happened at the beginning. Because at the beginning of their lives, the children in our care are surrounded by a whole community who echo what I believe God is already saying. You are beloved, you are valued, you belong. And our hope is that as they grow, as they learn about who they are, a process that takes an entire lifetime and often includes school sports, they never have to question it. They are loved, they belong, and they are valued. Not every family in our school systems have the same beliefs as I do, and I thank God for that, or any beliefs at all. And I'm sadly aware that not every faith community works hard to cultivate places of love, acceptance, and belonging. So for some kids, they find that on the soccer field, from their coaches, their teammates, their fans, and sometimes their competitors. I love the children of my community, as you do as well. I value them, and we should all be supporting spaces where they belong. Our schools and our sports teams should be on that list. Trans girls are girls and belong in girls' sports. Let them play.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. I come representing my congregation, Gilmo Boulevard United Methodist Church in Oshkosh, as well as friends and allies in the Milwaukee area. I'd like to ask a question of all of you. One of the great memories I have from my high school, especially high school days, was the celebration when our teams came home from championship events, and we would be met by fire trucks with lights and the police cars with lights, and the folks from the community would line the streets with horns honking. And it didn't matter if we had won or not. The fact that we got to go and compete, of course the cheers were greater if we did come home with the trophy. How many of you have had that kind of experience, that celebration? Can you share? I think it's an important part of community building, is it not? And we are servant leaders. I am called to serve the people who God brings across my path. And as a servant leader, for me to operate as I believe I am called, I need to see the sacredness and the holiness and believe in the blessings of the people that are in front of me. And that also means that I get to meet a lot of people and we have different outlooks on life. But I am still called to serve as you are called to serve. We have children who are seeking to live, to thrive, to do more than just survive. And we have a responsibility to do all that we can for our children, for all children, to have the opportunities to thrive, to live into who they are called to be. This legislation sets up divisions that create the potential harm. It creates a contrast, an other than, and when you compare and contrast, someone is always coming up short. We can do better, we can be better, we can think larger, we can think more creatively so that all of our children have what they need to succeed, not only in school, but in life. Participating in sports has been proven to help all children build. They build to build up who they are, their confidence, their esteem, to build relationships, to create habits that allow them to succeed as adults. We need to do whatever we can for all of our children, and our focus needs to be including about those on the margins more so than anyone else, because guess what? The rest of folks are already included. They already have privileges beyond measure. And so I encourage you to not pass this bill and to focus your energy, all of our energy, on creating a more inclusive, inviting, and upbuilding community for all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Chairman and members of the committee, my name is Reverend Brianna Ilene, and I am the Director of Ecumenical Innovation and Justice Initiatives at the Wisconsin Council of Churches. I am here to testify in opposition of Assembly Bill 378. The Wisconsin Council of Churches is a network of Christian churches and faith-based organizations committed to working together across our many differences to promote collective good. We connect 21 Christian traditions and have with them approximately 2,000 congregations and over 1 million church members. Exercising holy imagination, we help one another make courageous choices that lead towards peacemaking, social and economic justice for Wisconsin's most vulnerable residents, and the vitality of the church and well-being of our neighbors. As a council, we have adopted a statement on nonviolence that reminds us that faithfulness to its mission requires the church to speak out against violence, minister to its victims, and work tirelessly to reduce the level of violence in society. We come today to decry the violence in AB 378. Transgender individuals are unnecessarily under attack, and this legislation is just one of many items currently before our state legislature that cause undue harm to a marginalized community. The isolation and demonizing that this bill promotes are spiritually harmful and empower hate speech and hateful action. Transgender individuals are children of God who deserve a dignified existence. While it may seem strange to have a group of churches and people of faith speaking out on sports, the reality is that we share some commonalities. Sports teams, just like our churches, are meant to be shared spaces to bring together people and build up. They create community and they provide outlets for health, wellness, and collaboration. This bill fails to do any of these things and does quite the opposite. It creates needless division and punishes our young people simply for being who they are in the world. Our faith teaches that God is relentless in pursuit of well-being for the world and its inhabitants. As Christians, we are called to facilitate communities of well-being and public policy that does not harm. In the spirit of love and accountability, we reject AB 378 on its merits, and we ask this body to do the same. Thank you for your time.
Go ahead.
Go right ahead, Mr. Birch.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Murphy, and all of Wisconsin representatives that are here. My name is Michael Birch. I use he, him pronouns. I'm here to speak against the bill in question and speak favorably for transgender persons. I want to be respectful, and I really appreciate the comments that the previous testimony has provided. I want to say a few things to sort of introduce why my opinion might matter. I've had simultaneously kind of 3 careers. One is clergy, which I'm tabling now, even though religion does have something to do with this. I'm not going to talk about that. And I've been a college coach in Division I athletics for 25 years in the Pac-10 and the Big Ten and the Ivy League. And I'm also a historian. So I've worked at 5 different universities teaching history and philosophy. And some of that coursework has been in the history of sport. So I would like to talk a little bit about history of sport and also, but promising not to make it a lecture, and then also talk about my coaching experience. I want to also preface with the fact that I acknowledge that this is complex and that I understand why persons on all sides have these moments where it doesn't feel complex. It's really clear for them. I understand and empathize with that too, but I want to acknowledge the complexities, and at least 3 times I know I heard those representing the bill here at the beginning of the session said, I want to quote and make sure I do that correctly, that they wanted to work together for fairness. So for those who are representing the bill or advocating for the bill, to whatever degree you think my words might be helpful, I want to offer myself to collaborate with anyone to work toward fairness, because I think that we can achieve something like that. And I want to take her words at face value that she truly does want to work together for fairness. Besides being a coach and a historian, I also spent 10 years in litigation as a plaintiff and as a key witness for a Title IX case that had some historic proportions. I want to talk a little bit about that. But I first want to make some clarifications about Title IX, even though I'm not an attorney. Number one, Title IX is not sport legislation. Title IX is equal access in education. And this is really critical because most of us think that we know that Title IX is about sport and athletics. That's because it gained popularity and cultural popularity through sport cases that use Title IX. It's important to add, therefore, that when organizations like the NCAA or WIAA or any number of other organizations start talking about issues like this, a phrase that we agree upon, a terminology that we agree upon no matter what side we're on, is student athlete. And the reason why we use the term student athlete is because America does have a kind of unique niche. Maybe there are other countries now that are more like that, but that unique niche is that sport is in the public schools. Where in the majority of countries around the world, sport develops in private clubs. So because of that, sport being through our public school educational institutions, the term student athlete rules the day. And it's my clear impression that what people are talking about here this morning and now this afternoon soon is questions about fairness. And if we're talking about fairness in sport, then actually I really truly believe we have to start with fairness in education. And the transgender persons who are seeking to participate in sport are first and foremost, I'm not speaking for them regardless of what they might think differently, but first and foremost, they are pursuing an educational opportunity and all the benefits that go along with participating in sport. There's hardly any athletes that actually participate in sport first and foremost thinking that they're going to, at the end of the day, secure a professional contract or even a gold medal in the Olympics. It's for many other kinds of benefits that come with education. So I wanted to make that part clear. And then last, really what I want to do is tell the short story of what I experienced in that litigation, because I see and hear so many important analogies here that I wanted to share those with you. I can't sit here and boast about my coaching record, tell you that we were 350-10 or something like that. I'm not going down in any record books for win-loss records. But I am proud of the fact that myself and the coaching staff that coached with me, I was the head coach at the University of California, Davis, that we formed the very first women's wrestling team in the United States of America in the mid-1990s. That move led to the administration not long after that removing the females from the team, and it led to litigation, which we won. 3 federal Title IX lawsuits over a 10-year period. And today, there are many colleges and universities with varsity women's fully funded wrestling programs. There's a women's Olympic team. One of the wrestlers on my team is now an Olympic coach for the U.S. Olympic team. And it transformed things. But let me tell you what I heard at the time when we were forming women's wrestling. Some of the exact same comments that I'm hearing now to prevent or ban transgender athletes. I'll start with the using of polls. And we can argue about how useful they are, but in one sense I want to say, who cares? And that's not the point, because when I was trying to start women's wrestling in the 1990s, the polls were far worse than that. There's 90% or more people who thought women's wrestling was unnatural. It wasn't meant for women to participate in wrestling. I was in the 10% or less that were advocating this. So the poll, if we would have listened to it, we should have given up back then in trying to advocate for women's wrestling. They also told me, and this is what the bill is being proposed as today, which is that this is a bill that is for protecting women in sports. Is that correct? It's for protecting women in sports. Well, I've heard that one for a long time, and so now let the historian speak a little bit to you. The ideological ancestry of protecting women in sports is pretty ugly. And anytime I hear, especially if it's a large group of men, trying to advocate for protecting women in sports, I'm suspicious. I mean, it started with cramming 12 women on a half-court basketball court with dresses on and limited time to play basketball because they wanted to protect them. We've had numerous other kinds of protections that kept women out of running marathons or participating in a variety of Olympic sports or participating in wrestling. So just the idea or the proposal of a bill that is designed to protect women in sports doesn't have a good history. It is evidenced in the very words I heard, that they wanted to protect women in sports because they were going to lose scholarships to transgender athletes. For those who are genuinely concerned about women losing scholarships unfairly, go talk to the football coach. Go talk to every campus in the country that has football and awards 100 full ride scholarships to men in a sport that is banned for women. And half of those scholarship athletes, 50 of them, are not even allowed by rule of the NCAA to travel to away games and compete. But they still ride their full ride scholarship out without even participating in half of the games. Never mind that most of them, even when they do suit up, never play. Those scholarships should be shared with women. There shouldn't be rugby teams that are on club sports that can't participate in varsity and enjoy the benefits of scholarships when there's so many football scholarships. So the idea of protecting women in sport, if this is really what we're talking about under Title IX, this is not the forum for that. And I want to add about using Title IX protection, because this might go to some of the representatives who've been speaking in advocacy for transgender and talking about Title IX and the penalties that come with not being in compliance. Let me also make clear for the record that relying on the NCAA or even the federal government to bring fairness for transgender people is not going to happen. Most schools with football programs are not in compliance with Title IX, and there are no consequences. There are countless universities that, if they were held in compliance with Title IX, would be having those funds withdrawn from federal funding. It doesn't happen because Title IX actually is not being adequately enforced to protect women's rights. So if we want to talk about fairness, there's a whole lot of fairness issues that we could talk about in the interest of protecting women long before we start talking about transgender people. And the fact of the matter is, what history tells me really is that this is a ruse. It is a cover. This is a cover for men whose masculinity egos feel threatened. That's what this is about. I have no doubt in my mind. I have heard paltry data cited here today from those who want to present the bill. If you want to present a bill that says it's a compelling bill to protect women in this day and age, where's the data? And I don't see any data. I don't hear any data because there's not any. Not to the level that you want to pass a bill like this that has this kind of implications. You need data. And the fact of the matter is, for all of us, except transgender people, for all of us except transgender people, we're all infants in this. This is new. Transgender people have been around for a long time. And they've been talking for a long time. But we haven't been listening. So for all of us who are not transgender, we all have a lot to learn, myself included. And I can tell you the most important things I've learned, for whatever reason, I actually don't know why, but my relationship with
Sir, there's some water there if you need to take a drink.
my relationship with transgender people is where my convictions set. So if you don't know any, or you're not friends with at least one, stop right there. It might not be your fault, but that's the missing piece. We have a lot to learn. And so far, what I've heard today about a law that needs to be passed to ban transgender women, I don't want to say that it's grounded actually in hatred or hostility, but it is grounded in ignorance. Firmly rooted in ignorance.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'm Rabbi Bonnie Margulis. My pronouns are she, her. I'm the Executive Director of Wisconsin Faith Voices for Justice. We are a statewide, nonpartisan interfaith organization dedicated to promoting social justice in Wisconsin. I'm here today to speak out against any and all legislation that harms members of the LGBTQ+ community, including AB 378 and AB 377. Make no mistake, legislation that seeks to bar students from team sports does grave harm. When we ban kids from participating in school sports at any level, high school or college, we deny them the opportunity afforded to other students to learn leadership skills, the value of teamwork, and the discipline of hard work and cooperation toward a common goal. But I've been really disturbed, particularly today, to hear that this legislation calls for creating a third category. As a Jew, I know what it is to be segregated. I know what it is to be put into a category. I know what it is to be othered. When we send the message to the LGBTQ+ community and to the members of the trans community that they are somehow other, that they are different, that they are perhaps less worthy of being treated with the same dignity and respect as everyone else, we cause harm. The stigma created by these messages is the reason why depression, anxiety, and suicidality are at a crisis level in the LGBTQ+ community. According to the Trevor Project's 2020 National Survey on LGBTQ youth and mental health, 40% of LGBTQ youth seriously considered attempting suicide in the prior 12 months, with more than half of trans and non-binary youth having considered it. The members of Wisconsin Faith Voices for Justice come from many different faith traditions. We are Jews, we are Christians, we're Muslim, Buddhist, Baha'i, Wiccan, Hindu, Quaker, Unitarian, and others. We have different beliefs and different practices, but all of our faiths teach the same basic value that honors the inherent worth and dignity of every human being and the imperative, above all, to love each other as we love ourselves, and above all, to do no harm. We call upon you all, our legislators, to refrain from doing harm to the trans community and to vote against this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. And I want to first say thank you to the members of this committee who stayed in your chairs. It may not be easy, but thank you for listening to the stories of Wisconsin. And so I am Laura Wright. I am the Minister of Faith Formation at First Congregational United Church of Christ. And I want to speak against this bill, AB 465. I want to speak first from my personal experience because that is the thing we know best. My stepdaughter shared with us last year that we were using the wrong pronouns because we had not fully understood her identity. Our language did not reflect who she knew herself to be. She was bullied in school, and she ran away to another state where she is presently, a homeless teen. If you pass this bill, she will be even less likely to return home to Wisconsin because she can no longer be supported here and receive medical care in this state. And why should she return? You, the legislature, are making parenting for us infinitely more difficult. You're harming my family. We are asking that you trust that we love our kids. Trust that we know the children in our families better than the writers of this bill. Trust that I am following the teaching of Jesus. Matthew 19:12, if you want to go home and look it up. Trust that we are raising our kids with love. And when you vote, I pray that you will think of my family and make my parenting easier. Please oppose this bill. Thank you.
Hello to all of you. It's good to be with you this afternoon for the last 4.5 hours. As a longtime church pastor, I have ministered to and cared for dozens of transgender young people and their families, and an equal or greater number of transgender adults. I will tell you that the children, teens, and parents are terribly stressed by bullying, harassment, threats, not only to the point that many of these young people, as you know, have thought about suicide or attempted suicide, but the distress they experience also affects everything else in their lives, their educational achievement, their physical health, their social development. And additionally, those parents are deeply fearful all the time for their children's safety. And living with constant fear causes incredible harm to the parents as well, and to the brothers and sisters, the aunts and uncles, the friends, the neighbors, the people who love them. I know about this not only because of the children and families in the congregations I've served as a pastor, but also because I head up an online network for pastor parents of transgender children. And I know about it personally because I am the parent of a transgender young person. I know firsthand about the stress and the bullying, the suicidal thoughts. I know that what my child has received, and I know firsthand about the critically important life-saving medical care and psychological care that my child received from the time they were 13 until today. They are 24. I consented to this care when my child was a minor. Nobody sold medical transition to me or my family or the dozens and dozens and dozens of families I have worked with. Nobody threatened us with doom if we didn't offer gender-affirming care to our kid. Based on my understanding of my kid and their needs, we had a team, as you've heard from other parents here, that took care of my child. When I heard about this bill, my heart sank and my heart raced. When my child learned about it, they said they were so worn down by legislative attacks on their very being. They were sick of it. It was painful. They hoped they wouldn't have to leave the great state of Wisconsin, where they've been since they were 4 years old. I hope they don't have to leave either. They have a lot to offer our state, as do the many, many transgender young people, again, evidenced by folks who have testified here today. Please do not advance this bill. And if you are here and you'd like to know more about what it's like to be the parent of a transgender child and youth and young adult, call me. I'm happy to talk. I've talked with hundreds and hundreds of people on both sides of this issue. I am available. I'm here to help.
My name is the Reverend Dr. Christopher Ross. My pronouns are he, him, his. I serve as pastor of First Congregational United Church of Christ in Watertown. Instead of citing scripture at you out of context this evening, instead I'd like to share with you some words from one of my church members. I am a transgender individual who lives in Wisconsin, and my community cares about my well-being and the well-being of anyone like me, including children. While I did not have the opportunity to transition as a child, I do believe it would have impacted my life in a much better way than being forced to live a lie until I was nearly 30. I did not know what being transgender was as a child, but my ignorance did not stop the feelings I felt. Children need to be nourished and uplifted as they navigate through life, and what you are proposing will literally kill some of them. Science has proven how valuable gender-affirming care is, especially with children and young adults. Children who receive gender-affirming care have better mental health, succeed more in academic and extracurricular activities, and generally are much more adjusted to live a productive life as an adult. I urge you to listen to the actual experts when it comes to things you do not know about. I understand how things can seem like they are happening suddenly or they are a new trend, but we have been around since the beginning of time. Even in the Bible, there are examples of people going outside of the gender norms, like Joseph wearing makeup, Deborah being a powerful judge, or the various eunuchs mentioned in both the Old and New Testaments. I would like to reiterate, we just want to live our lives. We want to be able to receive the medical care that will literally save our lives. Thank you for listening to what I have to say, and I sincerely hope it makes you reflect on what you are doing.
Thank you for staying and listening. And I'll do my best. Oh my gosh, it is way dark up here.
Yes.
But you do have a copy if I stumble. So I speak to you today as an out lesbian, having been in a relationship for 28 years, as a mother of 3 kids, and as a clergy member of this faith community. Let me say first that when I started being physically and emotionally drawn to people of the same sex, I thought God had made a huge mistake. For years, I lived with the belief that I was not worthy to be loved by anyone. It was only with the loving support of family, friends, and a minister that I came to accept and love myself for who I was, so I could ultimately find love in another human. So it is that I say to this committee, what is being done with this legislation not only fails to support kids, but it is an attempt to demonize the kids and their families. This bill requires professionals, teachers, counselors, doctors, to actually demonize youth for who they know they are. Professionals that we should trust. What kids feel when they're demonized and unable to be their genuine selves is that there is no reason to live. If you have never had someone tell you they have attempted to or wanted to commit suicide, then you don't understand the gravity of the decision you are making with this bill. There is no bigger punch to the gut than hearing someone you love express a desire to take their own life. And I have heard that. Just because they have been ostracized by people who claim to care for them. Those of you on this committee, those of you who identify as straight, I ask you, how would you feel if someone forced you to present as gay? You would more than likely be saying that you can't force me to do that. You don't know how I feel. I know who I am. Yet that is exactly what you are saying to our kids and their families in this bill. That statement is flat out wrong. Please let these families make their own decisions to love and support their kids in the health care needed. And I'm not here to argue about faith, but in the faith community I am in, we are led by love. We lead with love, honor, and respect. We don't try to force people into boxes. We love and accept people even when it's hard.
My name is Reverend Dr. Jason Mack. I'm the pastor of Underwood Memorial Baptist Church in Wauwatosa, Wisconsin, and a resident of Madison here. It's been a long day. I'm glad we're all here. I wondered about staying, but I've heard a lot of people speak from a perspective of faith, and I wanted to share my own perspective of faith. I speak to you today because I serve a God that loves, a God that, according to our scriptures, literally is love. 1 John 4:8. I speak to you today because I serve a God who I believe sent their own Son, a very piece of themselves, to come to earth to show us how to love, to show us that to live a life of love is to love the outcast, the left behind, and the marginalized. I followed this Son, this teacher, this guru, this Lord. I follow this example of God's love on earth every day to the best of my ability, and I try to encourage and teach my church to do the same. This teacher of love, this piece of God, was murdered. Not by criminals, not by a rival religion, not by the outcasts that he served. This teacher of love was killed by an unholy alliance between the religious and political leaders of his day. This teacher of love was killed because he dared to love the wrong people and told others to do the same. So I speak to you today to say as loudly as I possibly can that the hate and the scapegoating of the trans community that is present in these bills has nothing, absolutely nothing to do with the Jesus that I know or the God that sent him. And I, for one, will speak out against them as many hours as it takes to wait. Because I don't just speak to you this morning as a pastor, I speak to you as a parent, like many others have today. A parent of a trans youth who every day must watch as their country, the leaders who are supposed to be there to protect them, threaten their very existence. They're just a kid, just trying to love their life and love their friends and get into college. They shouldn't have to worry if their very existence is going to be outlawed. To the representatives supporting this legislation, I ask and I pray that you would look deeply into your own heart and ask yourself, is there something scary to you about my kid? Are you afraid of people simply being who they are? Do you feel like you need to silence difference? Do you need to push others back into a closet of your making? And I ask you to pray, because I am confident that the God of love will let you know that what we are doing here has nothing to do with them, and that God will tell you simply to stop. Just stop. So I urgently ask you to oppose Assembly Bill 465, and I thank you for your time.
I'm Rabbi Bonnie Margulis. My pronouns are she, her. I'm the Executive Director of Wisconsin Faith Voices for Justice. We are a statewide, nonpartisan, interfaith organization dedicated to promoting social justice throughout Wisconsin. I'm here today to speak out against any and all legislation that harms members of the LGBTQ+ community, especially young people in that community. And make no mistake, legislation that seeks to bar youth from gender-affirming medical care does grave harm. Gender-affirming care is life-saving medical care. It is supported by nearly every major American medical association, including the American Academy of Pediatrics, the American Medical Association, the American Psychological Association, and others. Legislators who have no medical training should not be in the position of substituting their judgment for that of medical and mental health experts, nor should they be substituting their judgment for that of parents who want to support and affirm their children's gender identity. Depression, anxiety, and suicidality are at a crisis level in the LGBTQ+ community. According to the Trevor Project's 2020 National Youth Survey on LGBTQ mental health, 40% of LGBTQ youth seriously considered attempting suicide in the previous 12 months, with more than half of trans and non-binary youth having considered it. By contrast, transgender youth whose families support their gender identity have a 52% decrease in suicidal thoughts, a 48% decrease in suicide attempts, and a significant increase in self-esteem and general health. The members of Wisconsin Faith Voices for Justice come from many different faith traditions. We are Jews, Christians, Muslims, Buddhists, Baha'i, Wiccan, Hindu, Quaker, Unitarian, and others. We have different beliefs and different practices, but all of our faiths teach the same basic value that honors the worth and dignity of every human being, and the imperative above all else to love others as we love ourselves and to do no harm. I call upon our legislature to refrain from doing harm to the trans community and to vote against this dangerous legislation. And I also just want to say there's been a parade of people today who have come here misquoting, misconstruing, and mangling the text of the Hebrew Bible to justify hate. And I find that heinous, and that's not what the Hebrew Bible says. Thank you.